Partner Gary, aka DJ Gaza Taylor, and I choose a theme and play our favorite songs that fit that theme. Tune in right here every Sunday from noon to 2 on iLive Radio.
Every Friday, take a trip around the world with music from around the globe. Colors of Rhythm with your host DJ Ron John. Fridays, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. on iLive Radio, iliveradio.com.
Hey, what's going on, everybody in cyberspace? This is The Groove Show with your boy, the crowd pleaser, DJ Mark Anthony. Don't forget, each and every Saturday afternoon from 4 to 6 p.m., we want to put you in the mood for whatever the night has in store. I'm playing only the best feel-good party rocking, body-shaking music from funk to soul to reggae to R&B, house and salsa, and much, much more. We call it The Groove each and every Saturday from 4 to 6 p.m. Keep it locked. It's the crowd pleaser, baby. You know how we do. We'll see you on the air. Peace.
Greetings, my family. This is Steel. Now, some of you may know me, while some of you may not. I'd like to take this time to invite you to go check my latest album, Just Breathe. Now available online anywhere music is sold. 14 blazing tracks, including sweet reggae music, I Feel Like, Tonight, Show and Tell, plus many more. Follow me on Instagram at The Real Steel One, Facebook at Steel Mobs, or YouTube at Steel Official Music. Take the chance. You may love what you hear. Steel, Just Breathe, available now. One love until we meet. My name is Steel.
Attention all musicians, bands, associations, clubs, and organizations that represent collective styles of music across Canada. Now is the time to rebuild our collective music nation genres like hip-hop, R&B, jazz, soul, reggae, gospel, and more united. The Collective Music Nation is a non-profit organization committed to the development of collective music. Free memberships are available now. The Collective Music Nation. One voice, strength in unity.
Nothing makes you look, feel, and perform better than a tailor-made suit. Just like a tailor-made suit, a mortgage is not a one-size-fits-all solution. Canadian Tailored Mortgage Solutions will customize a mortgage to perfectly suit your needs. Come and get fitted for your mortgage today at 1-877-834-9346 or reach us on the web at ctmortgagesolutions.com. COVID safety protocols are in place. Brokerage license number 13228.
The number one hit music station.
You're listening to iLive Radio, changing the way you listen to radio. iLive Radio.
You know, by keeping this thing on the low, yeah, way I'll go. You know I like things simple. You like to play your games, yeah.
Good afternoon, good evening,
Like your way.
good morning, good night, wherever you are in the world.
Either way, I stay.
Welcome to the Sound Table.
Got me to play. And whoa, now I'm awake.
With your host DJ Sessions. Tonight
So lame. You lost your own.
we will be discussing
Yeah. You lost
black radio in Canada, or Canadian black radio. Got a very special guest.
my way. Get on up.
We have a multi-award winner
Third time.
at iLive Radio Awards anyway.
Choice now that shame.
Slim from the Slim and Sandra Show.
Either way.
You can catch him every morning, Monday to Friday on iLive Radio Toronto.
Got me to play. Yeah. You lost your own game. Yeah.
And if you want to know who's singing below,
You lost your own.
the brand new single from iLive music artist Jusso
Have loved you better.
got released today. Go over to
Better. I should have loved you better.
iLivemusic.bandcamp.com.
I should have loved.
Go grab a copy.
I couldn't have loved you better.
I see the chat room's filling up nicely.
I couldn't have loved you better.
We appreciate the support. See, I know I'm going to be all like fingers and thumbs today because I'm doing everything. No Patrick Morris show. We might be able to go some overtime, but we do have inside the studio Mr. Slim waiting in the wings. But just to kind of set the tone or frame of the conversation today, we're going to talk about radio, and we're going to talk about Canadian radio, and we're going to talk explicitly about Black Canadian radio. That goes from ownership down to programming. We're going to go across the board. Our guest is a veteran of the commercial radio scene, been associated to a number of stations, including Flow 93.5 at its inception. It's going to be a deep dive conversation, just to let you know. We are not pulling any punches. I have liability insurance. I don't care. Anyone sues me, I'm fine. I have insurance. That's what I pay for. All right? So shouts out to everyone that's inside the chat room. Orange Moon Entertainment, Gwendolyn Collins, Intellects from iLive. Shouts out to you, my friend. Diva D, how you doing? So we're going to pull the special guest onto the stage, and let's see if we can get him. Aha. Did I catch you drinking something that you shouldn't be drinking?
Yes, sir.
Like
Johnny Walker on May the 4th. You know what I mean?
What's wrong with you, man? Like, I'm inside the studio.
Yes.
Got broken bottles of bottled water here. You know?
Water?
Smashed down with anger.
Water.
Gotta keep the slim and trim physique. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. You don't got the COVID look, man.
I had the COVID look for a hot minute, and then I proposed to my fiance, and I have a wedding coming up in next week. I had to bring it down.
You didn't tell me that. Congratulations there, my friend. Thank you. Congratulations.
I appreciate that. It's been a race to the finish line.
Wow.
With my new and improved body shape. I hope everyone appreciates that. The belly's not quite so big anymore, so can't complain. You know, I'm feeling a lot better.
Don't worry, you and Will Smith are in the same look. He says that he's in the worst shape he's ever been. So he looks like the rest of us. We're all good.
Yeah, I know. That's going to change soon enough.
Yeah.
Mr. Slim of the Slim Sandra Show.
Yes. Good. I'm doing well. Thank you very much for the intro, and the iLive Awards were absolutely fantastic, by the way. As I was telling you earlier, you put together a fantastic event. So excited to be part of it, and very excited to be part of the iLive radio family, and great things you're doing here, 100%.
Well, I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate that. I will pay you later.
Yes, no worries.
Appreciate that. We stuck to the script. I like that.
Times 4, please.
Okay. So we're gonna talk Black radio, and it's really, it's something that we talked about just the other day when you called me. Right, we started talking about radio, etc. And I said we're gonna do a sound table, and my guest that I had cancelled on me, and I said, I want to bring this forward. We're gonna have it today whilst it's fresh in my mind.
Yes.
So just give people a bit of background about yourself and your involvement in Canadian radio. Just a quick, summary of your history.
So 30 years now. 30 years in Canadian radio, starting from literally, I think, 89, 90, when I started at CFTR, an AM radio station. And literally, I've been at the majority of radio stations here in Toronto on a commercial basis, out west, at the Beat 94.5, and literally a lot of the stations here on a commercial basis over the course of 30 years on and off in voice work. And so I'm quite familiar with the commercial landscape here in Canada.
Wrong one. I pressed the wrong button.
That's okay.
You need an engineer.
Like, did he want more? What did he want?
I don't know. Okay, so and you transitioned successfully over to live streaming, obviously with the aspect of this is a very different experience for you, right? It's very different to the radio.
Yeah, as I was saying to you when we first spoke, before I came on to iLive, I dabbled in internet radio literally when we came back from Vancouver, so around 2002, 3 or so, when I thought, it'd be good if I wanted to start my own radio station, because I didn't really want to go back to listening to management and PDs and all this other stuff. So I thought, well, why don't I just try and launch one? Back then, it was very expensive. Internet was expensive. Bandwidth was expensive. Paying for music license was expensive. Everything was expensive. And let's not even get into websites, because back then I didn't even know how to put one together. So I think I dabbled in it for about a year, 2 years maybe, and then literally went back into commercial radio shortly thereafter, and kind of left that aside. So that was my first introduction to quote unquote live streaming or internet radio.
Right. Got you. So let's kind of like dive into this topic.
Yeah,
we should. I think
Please.
we've got enough of your background now. I think
Please.
proved yourself as subject matter expert, at least within the Canadian market.
Yes.
And it's very, very, very much a privilege to talk to you and get some real insights into this. So let's start from the I guess from the front going backwards, right? So the current state of radio in Canada overall for Black music on a rating of 1 to 10, 1 being the worst, 10 being the best, where would you currently rank it in the commercial radio space?
Today, in terms of Black, and that's a interesting question, because I would say from an artist perspective, they're probably in the best time that they can possibly be right now in terms of getting their stuff out there. Because, when I started, that was probably, I'd have given it a 1 or a 0 for that matter, because there was just no avenues whatsoever in terms of getting your stuff played. There were avenues, but you had to jump through hoops and you had to prove yourself worthy of getting yourself on commercial radio. There was always the campus radio, college radio, university radios to get your stuff on. But from a commercial standpoint, you can sit here and talk about Maestro for days, and we can sit here and talk about Mishi Me for days. We can sit here and talk about Dream Warriors for days. But how many did I just mention? 3? Like, I mean, from a real commercial standpoint, you can talk about Snow if you want to. You can talk about some of the, as you get down the tier, you can, but we're talking about sprinkles at this point. Right. Now, today, the fact that you don't need commercial radio to get your stuff out speaks volume. So from 1 to 10, I'd say, you're probably at a good 8. Okay, so in terms of the ability to get your stuff onto, 100%. Okay, 100%. And what about the radio stations' acceptance of the content and putting it into their mainstream rotation? How would you rank currently commercial radio? Yeah, that's the more direct question. You're probably at a 2. Right. Yeah, you're probably at a 2, because let's face it, they still have the blueprint they had from way back when in terms of getting your stuff on, right? You need to have, this is not the exact science, but you still need to have your 8x10 and your big bio, and you're proven this and proven that, and your manager and all these other things that have to come along before they even look at you. And if I was an artist and I was sitting here in my basement, I just turned out what I would consider an amazing song, and I would go to Chum FM. I'm going to just pull them out of the hat and say, hey, here's some good stuff you guys should play me. They're going to be like, thanks a lot. You're one in how many that stopped by here today? We'll look at it in our music meetings. Right. Right. And yeah, I know the big old wink, all right? The programmers, the music meetings are things where they're supposed to evaluate what goes on to their A-list rotation, B-list rotation, C-list rotation, and, how much money's coming in to ensure that advertising and all that's been influenced. Yeah. All right. So even with the increase in artists' ability to get their stuff out there, hence available, the access to the entry point into making music is a lot lower than it was before because of technology. Yes.
You don't have to go to the studio to do it now. You can do it all behind your computer. You can master it online and you write a track and stick it on SoundCloud, right? Yes. But radio, and we're talking about commercial radio, really hasn't followed suit in terms of the absorption of black music. And I want to say black music because, that's what we deal with and that's what we focus on, right?
Right.
Okay, they've done poorly from your estimation. So, we're going to go, we kind of started here. We're going to go right back in history, right, with you. And we're going to talk about black radio from a black ownership perspective in the first part of this show. Okay, so pulled a couple of very interesting statistics yesterday. So I was actually looked up in the United States of America, of all the commercial radio stations that are in the United States of America, what do you think the percentage are that are black owned? Roughly.
Today?
Yes.
I would have no clue, to be honest truth. I'd still say it's pretty low.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd still say it's pretty low.
Yeah. And I looked at it from the perspective of there's stations that play black music.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's stations specialize in black music, but are they black owned? Yeah.
I think the first one was a university station, if I'm not mistaken. That was the very first one. It was a university. I think WHUR, if I'm not mistaken, of the call letters.
Yeah. So when I looked up the statistics for it, is actually 2.6% of all radio stations in the US are black owned.
Sounds about right.
Black music format, but black owned.
Yeah, sounds about right.
And of course, then I said, okay, let me do a cross comparison. Let me look at Canada, because I knew that G was. I knew what that flow was. Yeah. And when I actually looked up black owned radio station in Canada, the only two that popped up was G and Flow. Was there ever a black owned radio station prior to this? No, nothing. Zero.
No. I've never worked for one. I've worked for outside of the station you just mentioned, Flow. Never on my watch. The owners were white. The PDs were white. The music directors were white. That's all I know. You know. But I guess we'll get into it. But I think, a lot of that has to do with, and I touched on it when we spoke the other day, is that's not the heritage of Canada.
Right.
Like, we can sit here and delve into black ownership of radio, because listen, if you were black and you wanted to run a radio station, there were plenty of opportunities for you to do that. You yourself, or anybody. When I say you, I mean anybody listening. But it never happened. God bless Denham Jolly for taking the bull by the horn and fighting that battle to get a black-owned radio station and putting it on the map that way. But did anybody follow suit afterwards? I mean, in a major way? No. I got you. And once again, I point out because, then obviously I look at other demographic splits, right? Like, if you look at the Southeast Asian community, they own 14%, right,
across Canada. Other demographics have a footprint and have a dedicated radio station for their culture or their people.
Yes,
in a percentage perspective, right? Especially in such a multicultural society as Canada is, and inclusive. You would have thought that the idea of having a black-owned station would have been pretty straightforward from a community perspective. But you're correct. There's the question of heritage.
Yes,
and with heritage comes ownership. If you believe that your heritage is here, then you will own something here.
Yes, they were. I remember calling. I believe it was Chin Radio at the time, and this is during the time, because and we can sit here and we'll talk about WBLK for days, and I've always envisioned a station here since I was a kid, like BLK in here, Toronto, in Canada in general, and I always said, you know what, I would drop anything just to go and be part of that sound, be part of that, that culture and that just that sound, right? And you couldn't get it anywhere. You get pieces of it. So I remember Chin Radio, I believe, and Carl Redhead, again, bless his soul. I believe if he wasn't the music director there, I believe he was the music director there. And I called there to try and get a show on the station. Again, Chin radio station, culturally speaking, it's Italian owned. Right. And I try to get in there. And you got to remember, when the whole station is not made up of an urban format, you're only getting a sliver, a time slot, a little piece, and chop that up amongst how many people want to do that kind of radio. Think of all the campus, the CIUTs, the CHRYs, and so forth back in the day, and how many announcers would love to have been part of that. Like now you're fighting over that little sliver in space. And I called there and said, hey, can I send you my demo? And he's like, yeah, well, okay, you can send me your tape. But we're gonna have to see. I have a pile of tapes sitting here. And I thought, a pile? I'm like, oh. And that's when you really realize how much you had to fight just to get that little sliver when there's a 24-hour makeup of all these other radio stations here in Canada where, not to say that those folks didn't fight, but if you wanted the morning show, you wanted the evening, you wanted the weekend, you wanted to do whatever it was, there was more opportunity to do those things rather than trying to fight for this little urban slot at some station that really didn't specialize in an urban format. It was just a time slot, 2 to 3, or 2 o'clock to 2:30.
Right. Got it. So and that's interesting. I mean, kind of like you talked about Chin and trying to get onto Chin. We're one of the very first people to get onto Flow, and obviously Flow was the first commercial black radio station. From my history that I've looked at, I guess in competition with trying to drown out the whole noise from WBLK, which is over in Buffalo, right? Because that's what you listen to. Yep. They decided to give you like the WBLK sound with the Caribbean twist, if you want to call it that.
Yes.
The Caribbean community. So talk about very briefly about your experience with Flow.
I was so excited. Well, just to step back a bit, remembering they didn't get the license, the KISS license, so KISS as in CISS at the time, which had gone to the country station, which, that was a big upset here in our city because it was, loss of hope that we were ever going to get a black owned or urban radio station here in this city.
Right.
And I followed that. Application. At the time, I believe I was working at CFTR at the time when all that application had happened. And, I remember thinking, oh, you know what, here's a chance. As soon as that happens, I'll leave this station. I'll go work for them. And it didn't happen. And the second opportunity came about. And when they did get the license, I was working at KISS 92 at the time. And, things were happening there that weren't really great, to be totally honest. And when the license came about, I remember still working there, sending my demo there to the station. I didn't know who the management was going to be at the time. All I knew, Denim was sort of the be all and end all. And I sent my stuff there, and I immediately got a call back asking me to come in and audition, because that's what they had back then. It was an audition. It was a weird process, to be totally honest. It wasn't one that I was used to from a commercial standpoint. It was usually you sent your demo in, you had an interview, and then you're on. But because this was the first urban station or black owned station, there were so many people and so much riding on it. They wanted to make sure that they had the right people on board and involved in that station.
Gotcha.
And safe to say, I was the only, although me and another individual, Kwame, we were the only two that really had commercial radio experience.
Okay.
And the other announcers were all coming from college radio. And let's be fair and honest, college radio had done a lot of the groundwork in terms of laying the bricks up for that urban sound here in this city. From where we didn't have a BLK or a WBLS or whatever these stations are in the States, those were our stations here. So for us as kids, when you were listening to stations and you listened to Ron Nelson and all these guys, those were our American stations. Those were the places where you went to catch your 2 hours here, your 3 hours there. So they laid down a lot of the groundwork for it. But from a commercial standpoint, you know, remember, Flow wanted to be a commercial station. They didn't want to be a community station. They didn't want to be a college station. So they had to play with the big boys. When they decided to launch, they were going to go up against the Kiss 92s. They were going to go up against the Chum FMs. They were going to go against, like, you're talking commercial, formatted, boom, boom, boom. So by the time I got on board and the launch had happened, I think it was one of those magic moments, regardless of technical issues and, you know, glitches with microphones and studios and so forth. I don't think a lot of people cared. I didn't really care that much. And I was coming from a commercial background, so I was used to, you know, certain things coming from certain stations, but I didn't really care. I thought, you know what? I'm going to be here until the day I die. This is going to be this heritage station that's going to be here. Just like a lot of those heritage stations in the States, and this station is going to be here forever. So whatever it is, I'm here to stay. And for the first year and a bit, it was going that way. Like, it was taking the steps. Again, there were a lot of hiccups along the way, but it was going in that direction. But remember, one station. It's not like we had 5 stations here in Toronto, another 5 in Saskatchewan, another 5 in BC. We had one station. So one station had to please to R&B, hip hop, gospel, jazz, everything had to sit under that umbrella and had to please everybody.
Right.
So that was a big feat to have to take on.
Yeah, I mean, having one station that takes care of all of the needs of the Black community and people are into Black music and the expectation of what that station sounds like, I'm sure that they were held to a higher standard than other stations when it came to that. So you said for the first year that, you know, we're going to dig a little bit. So you said for the first year everything was going fine. Then what do you think kind of contributed to the kind of turn when it came to Flow and your involvement with Flow?
You know, there were many factors that I think that played into, and again, I was never involved in management, so you can't ask me about financials and so forth. But I think there were a lot of cooks in the kitchen, right? And from programming to the music department, and again, and I think the basis of it is that the station had to be many different things. From a commercial standpoint, though, right out the gate, what you were looking for, what the station was looking for, was a lot of the big corporate dollars to come in. And when I'm talking about the big corporate dollars, I'm talking about, and I'm using examples here, is the Nikes, the Coca-Colas, the big boys to drop some major dollars into the station. The problem is with the music that you were playing, you immediately start looking down to Eglinton and Oakwood. You know what I mean? Like, you just
Patch up.
Right. That's or we're looking the other way down to Clubville. Right. And we got put into this stereotypical this is what this station was going to bring in. Not to say we didn't bring in corporate dollars, but the majority of our money that came in at the beginning, I remember the ads we were running at the beginning, and it was nicest party shop around it, blah, blah, blah. Da, 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 da. And I thought, oh, wow, how much of that are we going to do? And you have to pay salary. Remember, we're running like a radio station. It's not like this is a part-time thing where we have other shows that are going to come in and play other types of music, dance music and house music and and top 40 music that's going to make up the advertising dollars. This was it.
Right.
This is it. This is, if we're going to play this music, we're going to play hip hop, and we're going to play reggae, and we're going to play calypso and all this stuff. We needed the financial backing and the financial dollars to bring that in. And what you tend to realize is that, let's flip the script here for a second. The big boys didn't have Eglinton and Oakwood on their station,
right,
and run no music. They
would. Yes. It's about the advertising dollars.
Period. End of story.
Right.
So you can say, oh, you know what? I want them to play this, blah, blah. Okay, who cares? Right? Where's that money coming from? Money runs the radio station. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, if the money's not coming in, then things are going to have to, you can't keep bleeding out money.
Right.
Now, I wasn't there until the bitter. I stayed there for a year, I think about a year and change, before the other urban station in Vancouver came knocking.
Right.
And because the PD and I didn't get along, and honestly, I just didn't see, they weren't taking the commercial aspect of it all that seriously, and there were a lot of hands, different hands in it, that thought that the station should go this way, and this is how the station should sound, and this is what you should do, and this is what you should talk about. And I'm like, okay, but you can do all that kind of stuff, but you need to think commercial wise. You need to think of how the corporate dollars are going to bring in, and you gotta balance that fine line with, you're gonna introduce a hip hop song, but you got to bring in the general knowledge and the general talk, so that Diane there, who is white and 37 years old, will be able to tune in. Those are the folks that you were missing at the beginning, right? You were trying to cater down this narrow road of this clientele, which is all good, but you needed the Chum audience, you needed the Kiss audience, you needed all these folks to come and listen to the radio station, so that their friends would tell their friends, who would tell the corporate people, hey, that station, go drop some money over there.
Go drop some money over there. And that makes sense. I mean, if you're kind of looking at the story from top to bottom, maybe the big miss was the fact that if you're coming as a commercial entity, and a commercial radio station is not a community radio station or a college radio station or a volunteer space that people come and play music,
to
make money, from a programming perspective, and from a presenter's perspective, you have to take your main, I guess, listening hours, your drive, lunch times and stuff like that, and make that as commercial as you can to attract those dollars. Do the more, how can we say, eclectic stuff.
Yes.
That's how you generally have to do it, right? In commercial radio. That's the only way it survives.
Yeah, you're day parting. You gotta have that. Listen, you're coming from our city, listening to BLK for many years.
Yeah,
you have to find a fine balance between BLK and the college radio station in terms of being successful. And I don't know if listen, there was no blueprint before, right? So we can sit here and right or wrong whatever was going on at the time. It was what it was, right? Like, if somebody could have said, hey, here's the station that was here 10 years ago, and here's what they did wrong, and here's what you guys should do, then boom. All I knew walking in there is, listen, I'm coming from a commercial radio station, and this is what these guys did. This is how they were rapid fire. This was boom, 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 play us on this, boom, boom. They had the blueprint that way. So you needed to take that blueprint, the commercial blueprint, and twist it so that you had that same shell that you can work from an urban standpoint or Black-owned radio station standpoint.
Yeah.
But I just think the sound at the beginning, because there was a lot of critics at the beginning, right? I can point to this Now magazine article that I'm pretty sure is online somewhere, about and it was bad. It was bad. It was they critiqued everything about the station, all the announcers, they literally lambasted everything about that station, the sound and so forth. And I thought, hold on a second. I'm sorry. Was there an urban radio station here before that you have some reference to? And I'm not talking about BLK. You had nothing to reference to. So it's like when we sit here and you knock our premiere about the way he handles COVID. There was no blueprint beforehand about the pandemic. So as far as I'm concerned, you can't sit there and knock somebody for something that never existed. And you don't talk to me about 1918, like talk to me about 2021. Was there anything happened that 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago? No. Same thing with the radio station. There was nothing here before. So what you needed to do, everybody involved, everybody that wanted any part of the radio station, magazines, artists, record labels, you needed to support in any way you could so that that station could flourish.
Yeah, I don't disagree. So we went through the whole Flow thing. We know what happened with Flow. Eventually it got sold to CTV, and then they maintained their urban status, reduced their staff, became more commercially viable, made their playlist primarily everything outside of Canada. It was essentially Drake and Division and all that kind of stuff. Try bringing those dollars, right? And I think they changed their format again. But I mean, it's part of a larger entity, right? It's going to be subsidized to a certain degree.
But the reason they did that, and they did that while I was in BC, that whole, I call it the Drake era. And the reason why that happened is because Kiss 92 started to up the ante. They started to play the 50 Cent. This is the 50 Cent Drake era, in the club. And when that started to happen, what are you going to do? Right? You're going to let them eat your dinner? That's your dinner. Right. And they're doing the, back to what I was saying about the shell. They have the shell. So now they're just taking your music. Yeah.
And sticking it into that shell and presenting it in a particular way that's attractive commercially to advertisers and attractive people, because people are used to listen to a certain way.
100%.
Absolutely get it. I just look inside the chat room. We've got Stokes from the Spinner Show. Stokes. Greg Stokes. He said he loves your Pew Pew shirt.
Yes, and can I just, for a quick second here, talk about Stokes? Because, I didn't realize he was even on the roster here until one day we had a meeting. I'm like, Stokes? Like Mr. G Stokes? And Stokes would know very well what I'm talking about in terms, because Stokes, Mr. Cocoberry, had a song. He was one of the very first artists to have his stuff played at Flow.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, you didn't know that, right? And
didn't know that.
Yes, it was through a mutual friend of ours, and he got his stuff in there, and we started playing. And that was the simpleness of it back then.
Right.
What I'm talking about of, he didn't have to jump through hoop. Had he tried to bring his stuff over to one of the big boys, would have never happened. Right. Brought his stuff in, Farley and whoever else was in the music department that probably listened to it with the backing of some of us announcers, like, hey man, this stuff's hot, man. You need to play this. And it was on in a heartbeat. Right. So he gets that era and that whole Flow era and what happened there. But from an artist standpoint, I think artists totally benefit from that station at the very beginning anyway.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, and that's kind of what I've heard as well. It was highly supportive, and you can kind of see how important Flow was, because after Flow went, then came G98.7. All right, so with G98.7, one of my friends from the UK actually got into G98.7. There was a big kind of like, we wanted people on our station, and a bunch of people sent in promos and demos and cassettes and mixes and whatever they want to try and get on the station.
Right.
Now, I remember going to the launch down in the Eglinton Grand with my friend Peter Platinum Phillips, and it was interesting to see the reaction when they decided to announce the announcers, because I think a lot of the people expected to see, okay, we're going to get some fresh faces, something a bit different, but then when like 80% of your roster was ex-Flow, you were just kind of recreating the wheel, right? And there was a bunch of disappointment there, to be honest. Like, there was a definite tangible disappointment, even though we were excited about launching, a Black Caribbean radio station commercial. It was kind of like, well, you just went and got the Flow DJs and tried to recreate Flow. And if you look at the journey of G98.7, very similar story. Opportunity lost. Again, they didn't kind of learn from the whole Flow thing, or did they?
That's a hard one, because the issue you had here from a personality and talent standpoint, there's two sides of it. There's, the artists who make the music, and then there are the announcers. And I don't think we actually ever developed announcers.
Right.
When I say announcers, I mean to be commercially viable at a radio station. So I think the pool of announcers that you had, you can right or wrong this for however way you look at it. What were you left to do at that point in time? Get a bunch of announcers that never had any experience, or go back to announcers that actually had experience, love them or hate them, and at least come at it from the gate running with some of these announcers that had experience for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. Or your other option was to get a whole new pool of announcers who had no experience, because I don't know where you were going to get this talent from.
No, right? I don't disagree. I think that for me, watching that whole process, well, I spoke to Fitzroy before he launched the stage. I come from radio, right? So I spoke to him as well. Not from the perspective of wanting to join it, because I was like, there's no way, this is not going to work for me. But I said to him, I remember having a conversation with him about the fact that, you have a real opportunity. They've given you a world music license. If you have your mainstay, your Mark and Jens and your and other things, there's other areas and avenues you can branch out to collect a different type of audience.
100%.
You understand? Rather than sticking with the Caribbean audience that they actually went after, or appeared to go after, and never really took off in the way that you expect. I expected they could have done, given that opportunity, learning from what happened with Flow. There's a whole younger generation that was still attached to radio, right? They still listen to Flow, but you didn't really cater to those in your launch of your station. Yeah. Those people that were black and born in Canada that was doing music that wasn't Caribbean. There wasn't really a space for them. They did that later on and only gave it a slither on their programming. Right?
No, I 100% agree with, I myself, when the station came about, I just, at that point in time, I don't know if I even wanted to be part of that going around, because again, everything was kept so secret. So you didn't know who was running the station, if it was going to be a lot of the same folks. So I actually just sat back to watch what was going to happen. And when they unveiled and you saw the announcers like you, I was like, oh, okay. So this is going to be Flow Part 2.
Yeah.
But listen, you could have got it. In my personal experience, what I'm more upset about is that there was never an avenue to train talent, like announcers. Right. We spend so much time on and rightfully so, on artist management and what the artist should do and the way they should get their stuff played, but we spend no time on developing announcers, black announcers, on how to properly come in and out of a song, to make a sound at least competitive to our American partners. Right? They come on there and they're boom and da 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 da, 30 seconds and boom boom boom, and they got that commercial sound that it pleases the commercial dollar.
Yes.
Right. And that go ahead.
Yeah, and that's what. Sorry to cut you. That's what you're supposed to be catering to.
Right.
You cater to your audience, which is great. You give them the musical content that they require, but in terms of how you deliver that content, has to be attractive to those people that have those dollars that want to spend it on your station.
Right.
It has to be you can't be commercially viable otherwise.
Listen, if this was the other way around, and we had, along with the beginning of time here in Canada, and we had a black radio station, and it sounded that way from the beginning.
Yeah.
Then who cares, right? We would have been in par with all the dollars coming in anyway. But we're coming in it way late. Right. So there's already a standard that everybody's accustomed to when they turn on the radio. So when you're coming on there and there's nothing wrong with it, because I'll sit there and listen to it. But again, from a commercial standpoint, they're like, oh, wow, they were sitting there talking there for 6 minutes about God knows what. Meanwhile, Johnny, Top 40 Radio over there, has gone through 3 songs already.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So there's a standard that is expected. It's not right, but it's either you're going to play with the boys or, crap or get off the pot.
Okay. So yeah, and I completely concur with everything you just said. I can add some more stuff from there, like, there was some talk around the fact that, the whole idea was to get to a point where it gets purchased. Yeah. So
Yeah.
get that status, and in comes a big buyer to buy it. But I think the CBC kind of put a wrench in that one when they increased their aerial power in the Peterborough area to drown them out in their biggest demographic, which is the East End. You could hardly get G, right?
Right.
And then, then G gets sold, or, basically essentially goes bankrupt, and, it goes into receivership, and there's an opportunity for the community to buy it. And we don't. And we don't buy it. And it goes out of our hands. It's still a black format station, but it's not owned by us. And to me, being a black radio station owner,
yes,
ownership is really important.
Yes.
Right? Because that's how you build heritage. That's how we pass it down. That's how you develop skills and, improve the content, get more commercially viable, and then pass that down to the next generation and improve over time and start to compete. But, we had it. There was an opportunity to buy it, and we didn't buy it.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said about, and I don't know why nobody would buy it, to go over to the West Coast here for a second, because right around that time when Flow was around and just before G98, you had your second urban radio station here in Canada, which was the Beat 94.5, which I went out there to do mornings for. And just to show the parallel, because I know a lot of people weren't out west. They didn't know what happened out west with the other urban radio station. And it launched just like Flow did, right? With Promise and everything. It was identical. When we launched, everybody was high-fiving each other, and Vancouver's first urban radio station. Now, different than Flow, it wasn't black-owned.
Right.
Right? 3 guys, young guys too, I think they were around my age at the time, who owned that radio station. Now, they were into the culture, they were into the hip-hop culture, and they wanted a station that they can call their own out there, and they got it. And it was just like Flow. They were even more so the Rascals, like this is West Coast. And 2-2s, I think in my 3rd year of my contract out there, when we were about to renew again, there was that conversation with the owner of the station. And I remember going in his office, and he was like, Slim, what do you think about because at this point we'd already done 3 years, and again the money thing became an issue, right? The corporate dollars, and you can hear it. They'll never say it to you, but it's like, so what do you think if we start playing like Avril Lavigne? And I was like, whoa. Along, so we're gonna we're gonna start introducing this music, and you knew what was happening, and it was, I wasn't around for the change over at Flow, but I was at the Beat when that change happened, right? And I remember when it first got introduced, and the first couple of weeks that we were on there and the music started to get introduced, they started to intertwine a lot of the urban music with a lot of top 40 music. And I remember the phone lines just blew up, and people were just like, what are you guys doing? You guys are, you're selling out, blah, blah, blah. And I had to sit there and listen to that for weeks. And when the contract came up, and he's like, well, we're not gonna renew your contract. We're gonna bring in, actually didn't tell me who they were gonna bring in. I found out afterwards, and it was a friend of mine, which I was upset about. And they totally turned into a top 40 radio station, which goes to show you, it didn't matter if it was East Coast or West Coast, the same thing happened. There wasn't the support system for it.
Right. Monetarily.
Monetarily,
it wasn't a support system for it.
So, was that a Flow thing? Was that the Beat 94.5 thing? Was that a G98 thing? Didn't matter.
Right.
It happened. The same thing happened at those stations. So back to how we started this conversation, we just never had the heritage for that back then.
Right.
What you're doing now is how it was supposed to be.
Gotcha. And I don't disagree. And it's funny because I always look at, England as the bastion of black music, and we did it the right way. But in reflection, we had London got its first commercially owned black radio station in 1994.
Right.
The first one was Choice FM. And that was black owned, a guy called Patrick Berry. And I was on Choice for 2 years, moonlighting as a UK garage DJ. Don't tell anybody that though. But I was co-hosting with a DJ called Mickey Sims, and I used to fill in for him. When he used to go do the clubs, he didn't want Patrick to find out, so he taught me to DJ UK garage exactly like him. So no one would know the difference. So I was on there for a while. I got picked up and did a few more shows. But interestingly, when eventually they got bought out by a large entity that owns Capital Radio and a number of other large radio stations. One of the reasons why they bought him is because at the time, very early on, digital licenses were being distributed. It was like very much like a experimental digital licenses, DAB licenses were being distributed. And Patrick bought up all the digital licenses for London and for Birmingham. And I understood why he did it, because he said to me, listen, I know at some point we're going to go to DAB and then the big boys are going to come knocking. And his vision was to buy me, yeah, right. You've got to take my station as is. And exactly the deal that he did. So when they came knocking, he says, okay, we'll do the deal, but you can't change the format for 5 years. And you have to move us and you have to support us and you have to invest money and bring people in and improve the programming. Like he had a bunch of clauses in his contract. And he was very successful for 5 years. Like Choice became this really successful commercial black radio station until the 5 years were up. And at the moment it was up, bam, 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 out the door, out the door, out the door, out the door. Within a year, top 40 and dance music. It was done. And as you're talking, I'm like, this is definitely not a Canadian thing. This is like a universal thing where, we are the minority. They will absorb the black culture, and we'll talk about a little bit about what's happening on CBC right now with the block. They'll allow you space programming on one of their stations, but they will not allow you ownership. Yeah, they will not allow you ownership or control. Which is, where internet radio really comes in, because there's no controls around here. We own what we do for now until licensing comes in and legislation comes in. That's going to change that. But whilst this is happening at the moment, like whilst you've got free reign, you build it, right, in preparation. So we talked about like commercial black radio, and like, now we're in the internet era. Now we're all online streaming. And and a lot of those radio stations are still running these kind of archaic ideas of how radio should work, and even some of the presenters still have the same idea, archaic idea that access to radio is a privilege, not a right, and use it almost as a weapon. You have to jump over all these hoops to get your stuff on their content with diminishing audience, and lower listener rates, right? So they're holding on to this illusion. But recently. A young lady started a show on CBC. I'm not sure if anybody's started to listen to it yet, called The Block, which CBC have now decided that they're going to give 1 hour of music dedicated to black music networked across the country. So if you go across the country, all their affiliates across the country in that time slot. Well, I mean, why do you think now? Do you think it's because this whole the whole George Floyd thing and allyship, etc.? Do you think that was a driver for such a decision? Because it came pretty quickly.
It could be, might not be. Who knows? If that didn't happen, would that have come to be today? I don't know. I can't really speak on that. But what I think I can say is that for me personally, that is no different. What they're doing now is no different than what they were doing back to when I'm talking about the chin, getting that little sliver. Yeah. It's not any different. I worked at Chin, or I didn't work at Chin. I worked at AM 530, which was 103's sister station, their AM station. Again, we had AM 530, and it was a block of 4 hours. Myself, Mercedes, John Bronski, a bunch of us literally had 4 or 8 hours or whatever it was to do our urban thing at that point in time. Nothing's changed. So when you sit there and talk about the block, I'm like, I don't mean to shrug my shoulders, but I'm like, there's nothing's changed there, right? So yes, from a because remember it's government owned station, so yes, it's nice that they're going to give an hour, but why not give us 6 hours then?
Well, here's my thing about it is that, okay, so you're giving us an hour and she has no format restrictions, meaning that she apparently can pick and choose what she wants to play on that radio station, which is, that's going to change at some point. But well, in that time slot. But to me, when I see a large organization do something like that, it usually means that you now have a reason to potentially exclude that content from the rest of your programming, because there's now a place where it sits, as opposed to including it. So I'll give an example. Radio 1 used to have urban shows. Yeah. They had a soul show, they had a reggae show on Radio 1 when, after the big pirate era in the UK and everyone was into underground music and the commercial radio stations started to jump on, including the BBC. They brought on some presenters that did that. But of course, doing that started to alienate some of their core listeners that are outside London, or, the north of England, where they're not really that integrated and they can't understand, well, this music, all these ethnic music is going to be on their station. Right. So what did they do? They created One Extra. And One Extra is where they dumped everybody. And once they dumped them into One Extra, you will not see one urban song played on mainstream Radio 1. Because now it's got a place to sit. And that's what I fear about, something like The Block being on CBC. Does it now exclude that content? Potentially any content that could have gone to some really cool program director or program manager said, hey, that's a really cool song. Let's put it onto our rotation and play it in this particular slot on the particular show in mainstream radio on CBC, when now it's a case of exclusion.
That's a hard one because, to your example there, if you're going to give us a CBC 7 and that's where you're going to dump all that music, then I'll take that.
Yep.
Because then I won't have to rely on you or hope that you're going to have us on even par and rotation in your system. Then you guys can do whatever you guys are doing. Right. That was the whole reason why we wanted an urban station here in the city, because we just felt like, there wasn't really speaking to us, right? There was just a whole lot of music being left on the floor and on the table that just wasn't getting played, or wasn't getting played in high rotation, or you guys just didn't know about it. I'll never forget when I was working at the station and the Mint Condition CD came in. This guy's from Minneapolis, and so their first CD came out, and we used to have a little bin that used to sit in the music department, and it was the throwaway bin, right? And the music director just didn't know about this group, and I remember picking it up, and he's like, yeah, you can have that. I'm like, but this is Mint Condition. He's like, yeah, so we're like, oh my gosh, you're gonna Jodeci was the same thing. Jodeci, the first album came in through the same thing. It went into that dump bin.
Wow.
And they would be, remember, if you're not part of the culture that way, and you just didn't listen to that music, it was real easy just to say, well, I don't know them, and throw them away. Again, third time, heritage in this city. You're talking about, the Tom Cochrans and the Rush, and these are the things that make up our city, right? So to have to go back, and that's why the club scene back in the 90s was such an underground scene, because that's where you got to hear the majority of that music. There was no radio station to back it.
Right.
We had, right? You went to the clubs, and that's where you got to hear your Necks and your Mint Conditions and your Jodeci's and your Heavy D's and your blah blah blah. You're like, this is where you got to hear all that music, right? And it's entire. So if you don't have the backup and the system to have that, then give me a station, right? At this point, I'm not looking for you guys to mix us into your rotation, right? I'm looking for like I said at the beginning, now today you're talking about a different time than we're talking about in the 80s or the 90s. And, this is the pre-Drake and pre-50 Cent era, because I think at that point in time is really when, that whole urban format really started to get really noticed, and everybody wanted a piece of it. Right. Everybody wanted to start playing Drake and 50, and oh my gosh, well, okay, well, can we play it? Blah blah blah. But easy come, easy go. Right. As soon as it started to dip in terms of popularity, Kiss 92 was like, you know what, that was cool. That was a cool era. That was a cool thing we did. But we can't continually do that. Right. So I don't want somebody who's gonna just because we're cool and we're in at the time. I want a station that's what you do 24/7, 365. That's what you do. Christmas time, Christmas music. That's what I want to hear. During the day, that's what BLK was. Right. That's the reason why we all gravitated there, because it was always there. It was always there.
This is true. But their core market was that side of the border, and demographically, dollars was coming in, and radio was a big thing out there, right? So we kind of caught the shoot over the border, got our musical fix, but from a profitability perspective, they were good doing it in Buffalo because they had the market there, right? So,
they were taking the Canadian dollars too, right? They were taking Canadian advertisers, right? They're live to airs. They had live to airs that were done here on Fridays, and they were taking Canadian dollars. This is pre the Flow era. They were literally coming into the city and taking the dollars that were left on the table.
Right. I hear that. Okay, so we've actually come to the end of our show because it's been an hour.
It's an hour already?
I know, man. It flies by, my friend. I told you. I hear that. But there's definitely room for an extended conversation, especially around heritage.
Yes.
Right? And the future. Because we are staring into the abyss of the future. And once again, do we want to continue to be on the outside looking in when this whole thing changes? Yeah. So I'd definitely like to get you back on this show because I know you have a few things to say around that, especially with your own journey.
Yes.
And everyone knows I'm very loudmouth about it already.
Yes. Yeah. I'll tell you about the time when I was too black for radio, but that's a whole other show.
Look, they actually said you was too black for radio.
Oh, there's an article. There was a full article written about.
There was a full article saying you.
In a magazine. Yeah. How I got let go from a radio station because it was too black.
Is it available online? I like to read that article.
I kept that. I framed that. Yeah, I framed that article. Yeah.
Was that in Toronto? Was that out west or something?
No. This was in Toronto. Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah. PD called me up and at the station that I was working at the time and said, your sound is too black. So
no. Stop.
Yeah.
Stop.
Yeah, man.
Stop. No, seriously, stop.
No, yeah.
What does that mean though? What did he mean when he said I need to understand what he meant. He's saying
you don't need to understand what he meant. You need to know what he said, and what he said was there's no meaning. It's just what he said. He said to me on my drive. I was in my 1988 Honda Accord driving back from Newmarket, and I got that phone call, and he said to me, "You know what? Nothing. No offense. That's how it usually starts.
Okay.
No offense." But your sound is, it's a little too black. I'm like, okay, but
yeah,
I am black. I'm sorry. I don't know what that sounds like. And safe to say, the station I was working at the time, it was really dance oriented, right? So it wasn't like I was trying to fit in anyway. I just sounded the way I sounded. But it goes to show you that, if it didn't fit what they were doing at the time, and it wasn't commercially viable, then you just, Now, the article that was written wasn't written because it was written by somebody else, and that was my story in that article. It wasn't, the magazine didn't write about me being too black, but that was in the article. And I always looked at that many years afterwards when I worked at radio stations. And it was always a constant reminder for me to push forward and never take that from something, because I took that and I took that I took that pretty hard after that was written, and that, you know, that thing always followed me in my back of my head every time I worked at a radio station. It was being conscious of it, and I was like, okay, well, maybe I should sound like this, or maybe I should sound like this. And really, at the end of the day, I just said, screw it, man. I'm just gonna be me. If it doesn't work out for me at this station, there are many other stations I'm gonna work at. But I'm gonna tell you something. I'm not gonna sell myself short on who I am. You take me through who I am and what I bring into this station. There's a whole sound of our culture that is missing from radio.
Yes, I know.
Right?
I completely agree. I'm still stuck on the fact that the PD said to you, "You're too black for radio," because I would have said, "Where are you?" Right, it's no conversation. And I always tell me, explains to me why we're too black for radio, and you know, let's just say that it's Canada's a very big place, and there's long hard winners. I'm from a particular area in England, and everyone that knows that from that area understands what I meant by that, because we had forest. All right, so the Queen's Forest was right there. Yeah. Oh my God.
Real talk.
No, real talk.
Yeah,
I wouldn't have even been fired. You just couldn't fire me because he wouldn't be backup.
Yeah. Well, I didn't. After that conversation, I didn't work there.
Yeah.
After that.
Yeah, that's crazy, man.
Yeah,
that's crazy. The things we have to
for days.
Yeah, the things we have to. Some of the things we have to tolerate, and I mean that goes across to the normal life, right? Like, you know, you have those kind of challenges in regular jobs. I mean, even in my job, it's, you know, being the only urban person on senior leadership, it's a struggle.
And in radio specifically, right? Really, because it's a small industry in the sense that you have literally 10 seconds to think about what you're going to say, and then you're quickly reminded that PD that works at that station in 6 months might work at the top station that you're trying to work at down the street. It was just that kind of play, and he did. So as much as I wanted to say a couple things, I ended up having to work for him at a bigger station. Granted, he wasn't working in the same role he was, but I had to use him to get into that station. So trust me, in radio, sometimes today, who cares? But back then, a lot of biting your lip.
Yeah. It was interesting because I believe the very first PD for G98.7, one of the presenters came on and goes, "Oh, God damn it, it's him." like what? Because I'm not going to be in there for long. Because apparently they had beef from before. So no one knew who the PD was going to be. And this guy walks up, and there's several faces on that stage that went, "Oh shit, I'm not going to be here for long." Yes. And my boy Peter Platinum Phillips, he didn't last for the station for long. And the interesting thing about him was he did it with a co-host called Candice Bromfield. Yes, her first time on radio. And they fired him because they said that people would find it difficult to understand his accent.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
He's like, "What, do you want me to start talk like in a Caribbean accent or something?" I said,
yes.
A radio presenter, this one I'm supposed to talk like. And that he really got to him, the fact that that's the reason why they let him go, because you know Canadians can't relate to your accent because you're from England,
right?
And you speak the Queen's English, which is a whole different conversation.
But
that's right now,
that's what makes us. You see that when we talk about urban stations, like we're talking about the full spectrum, right? And I think we always got into this pigeonhole that this is what this is needed to sound like, because apparently our city is only made up of Caribbean
people
descent.
Or African people.
Yes, that was it.
Yeah, not Black Canadians.
No,
or Black immigrants from English-speaking countries.
No,
we're not part of that demographic. No. Of course not. Why would we be? We should be alien to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see you right, my friend. Okay, we're going to wrap up. Slim, I'm going to bring you back, my friend.
Hey, it was fun.
Let the people know where they can hear you on
Yes.
all your channels and all your.
Please, you can check us out. My wife and I, Slim and Sandra, Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can check us out here on iLive Radio. If you're just clicking in and listening, you can catch our live stream over on mixcloud.com /live/Slim Jams, or you can find us on twitch.tv at Slim and Sandra. Any of those three will connect you. We have a great time. We sit there and shoot the shit and just really have a good old time. It's the best time for me in radio, to be totally honest. Out of the 30 years I've been in radio, I would say the first 4 or 5 years were amazing, and these last 2 years have been amazing.
Right, exactly, because there's freedom in what we do.
Yes.
Yeah.
I literally leave from my bedroom, come down here in the basement, and just flick on everything. And it's been the beauty of having the 30 years that you're able to come down here and take all those experiences, all those voices, all the things that PDs ever said to you, and sitting down in PD meetings afterwards. Like I don't miss that one bit. I don't miss sitting there in the PD's offices and listening to air checks and so I don't miss it. I don't miss it one minute. I don't.
Yeah, there's definitely a certain freedom, that with internet radio, and it was the same with pirate radio for us in the UK. Like, that was our pirate radio. We didn't want to conform to the norms. Very professional what we did, but we didn't want to conform. That was the freedom. Other than the fact that we were hunted down by, government departments that's trying to smash our stations up and confiscate all our stuff.
Right.
But that was the kind of like the adrenaline pump danger element of it all, or fighting other stations that's trying to go over your signal and beating them around the back for a little dust up. Other than that, it was a great experience. I get it. But yeah, I like to kind of explore the more of the heritage side next time I bring you on, and I think I want to invite a couple of people from the college radio circuit on there.
You definitely should.
I want to reach out to Jason Palmer.
Yes,
definitely.
Yes, definitely.
And on our stage we have Gene King, who used to be the guy that used to like oversee for part of time CKLN. So I feel I want to bring them on if they're available for our next conversation.
I want to say, for those that are listening, and because I don't think it's ever been said, if you are a young individual or even if an older individual and you'd like to learn this craft that we call radio, definitely listen to a lot of radio. Just it's easy to sit there and say, I'd love to do that, but you need to learn a lot about formatics, how to get in and out of a conversation, how to conduct yourself in an interview, how to intro a song, how to come out of a song. I think those are very basic things, and I think I was alluding to it during the interview. Why college radio is over here and why commercials over here, because they just have two different ways of doing things.
Right.
And I think a lot of the folks who would like to get in the commercial arena, they need to learn a lot of that game. I was fortunate to be brought up in that world. But I think if you want to learn more about that, definitely let's just listen to a lot of radio, and it doesn't have to be, here in the city. You can listen online, you listen to iLive, just cherry pick things that you like from different announcers and so forth, and really build up your own personality and your own character.
Yeah, don't listen to iLive. We're terrible at this stuff. We have no rules.
True.
We have no rules around this thing, my friend. None.
That's not true. It's iLive you need to listen to, because this is the new kind of radio. This is the kind of radio that you want to. This is the kind of radio that you want to work for or want to be part of, because the commercial radio, albeit it's good and it's money and it's salary and it's all that other stuff, it is slowly becoming a dying breed in terms of the go-to place,
Mhm.
right? As we talked about it before, if you can go as an artist can just give your stuff to Spotify and have your stuff going on to Apple Music or SoundCloud and all that other stuff and become popular, you know, yeah. What do you need? What do you need them for? And I'm not saying that there's no place for them, but they've kind of dictated how it's supposed to be, right? When you have folks like iLive who rear away from that road and this carve their own path, and this is what we're going to do, and here, take your time and be you and do those kind of things. This is the kind of radio I wanted when you approached me, and I remember I asked you and I said, okay, but you have heard my show, right? And you're like, yeah, I heard it. I'm like, okay, so this is because I had that commercial thing in my head, right? I've always had that commercial thing in my head. So it's when I say, okay, well, I'm 50-50, I'm 50 commercial, but I'm 50 just laid back, and that's the kind of radio I want to do. And you said, yeah, that's what we want. And I thought, geez, man, where were these guys how many years ago?
Well, if I know you was doing what you was doing, like you could have joined from the very beginning and given us some standards on our radio station,
yes,
we can abide by.
Yes. Awesome.
But someone just texts me and says, actually not someone, my fiance, who is a huge fan of your show, by the way.
Thank you.
Says, tell Slim I love his show. She listens to you every single morning.
Wow,
she doesn't even listen to me every single time I do something.
I apologize in advance, but thank you.
I'm surprised she's on now.
Yeah, that's awesome. Listen, like I said, it's a pleasure to do the kind of show that we do now, because it's not the kind of show that would fly necessarily in commercial radio today, and I know it wouldn't, just because, again, they have their cookie cutter way of doing things, and they have their way of the type of person they're looking for, more so today than how many years ago. Now you have, at least back then, you had some time to kind of go in there and talk a bit, blah, blah. Now they don't want you to say squat. They want you to come on there, you hear how fast they talk. They talk for about 10 seconds, and then they want you to get the song. It's all about the music now. All about the music. It's not about the personality anymore. It's not about the person.
Get to the music that's been paid to get on there, get to the commercials that are there, do the promos that you're supposed to do the readouts you're supposed to do the competitions and the giveaways you're supposed to do. It's all about bringing in money because their audience is shrinking.
Yes.
Yeah. So, where internet radio's audience is growing, but a lot of competition, and there's a difference between people that broadcast online and then people that own internet radio stations.
You think commercial radio we could have gone over by 18 minutes? No way.
No way.
You don't have that leisure.
I'm usually a stickler. Is that not only do we not go for 18 minutes, I muted the ad channel that's supposed to go off every 22 minutes.
See? But this is what I'm talking about.
I'm the owner. I can do what I want.
That's what I'm talking about.
We're going to talk about.
Yeah. That's what I'm talking about.
If Patrick was on afterwards, that'd be fine. But Patrick's off tonight, so some extra time. But one thing I have to say to any of the audience that's listening in right now, and when it comes to iLive Radio, anyway, we see ourselves as a platform where you can learn the craft of radio. The basics, getting used to using the microphone, getting used to playing music, getting your timing right. We're not the finished product by any stretch of the imagination, but we always allow people to be able to develop themselves within their own space over their own time. And, some of the veterans on our stations now, you would never believe that when they first started, never touched the microphone and played music at the same time. Yeah. So they've learned over the years, and now they're seasoned professionals. They're knocking the board, they're watching the ads, they're doing all the stuff without even thinking anymore. And that's, to me, watching someone progress to that point. Fantastic. Then our job is done. Right. But we are trying to recruit Slim into our higher team. See if he can give us some standards and some pointers at some point and say, listen, don't breathe on the microphone. Make sure you intro it right. Don't play a sound effect here. Drop your microphone.
I have so many of those. Yeah, I have so many of those. Yeah. And honestly, it's just basic stuff. It's not standards. It's just stuff that you've learned over time. Just makes you a better broadcaster.
Yeah.
And it's not specific to commercial radio. It's just generally speaking, if you want to come off, when you want people to say, oh my God, I love your show because you you have this way of bringing in this story. You have this way of talking about the weather that's not, hey, today the weather is going to be blah, 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 blah. You more talk about your day and what you're going to do today. And you so happen casually to bring in how the weather's going to be because you're going to go skateboarding or biking or whatever the case may be, rather than stopping down and say, hey, the weather today is going to be blah, 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 blah. They've all heard that. They've heard that for 20, 30 years. Is there another way that you can do that? Is there a different way you can talk about that artist or talk about a birthday rather than saying, hey, today is so-and-so's birthday. They're turning 31. So-and-so's birthday is turning 32. Maybe talk about the zodiac sign or something like that. It's just different tricks I've learned throughout my years that definitely and I'm still learning. Yeah, I know it sounds weird, but after 30, I'm still learning.
Yeah, like I always say to people that it's always a learning process. That's how I look at it. Like you never stop learning.
No,
you never stop learning, and I've learned a lot from you today, my friend.
Thank you. I'm learning a lot from you.
Don't no. I've paid you enough already, Slim. Don't go overboard now. There's no extra money here for you, my friend.
No, but it's been a pleasure. It's been nice being part of this new experience and the freedom that iLife gives. And like I said, it's been a pleasure.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you for joining us on the Sound Table. We will definitely be having you back in the future. Thank you. All right, this has been the Sound Table, the extended edition. Thank you for joining me on the show today. Next week, new topic. I'm trying to work out what that topic's going to be. I had a cancellation today, and Slim gladly filled in and the guest spot. But we're going to get back into our usual conversations. Slightly controversial, always interesting. Thank you very much for joining me. This has been iLive Radio, the Sound Table.
Keeping this thing on the low, yeah. Way I'll go. I like things simple. You like to play your games, yeah. I really don't like your ways, yeah. But either way, I stay. I only got me to blame. Unwoke, now awake. Trying to keep up with so lame. You lost your own game, yeah.